Good morning, Cosmonarchs. I'm Pronigo, and I'm going to be casting a set of matches between Neblime and jakulangski. This will be Protoss versus Zerg on a new map, newish, called Genesis Y, this one by Biddy B. My first time seeing games on this map from a castover perspective. I think I saw Neblime fight Arbuz in PvP once, but other than that, yeah, this is my first time actually seeing this one in action. Let's see how it goes. You'll notice in the date in the top left here, these games were played on the 5th of this month, so pretty recent games. Of course, we will find out what awaits us, with jakulangski in the top right and Neblime in the bottom right. I can't believe it. Is Neblime actually deep periwinkle? What is this? Oh, it's just regular periwinkle. Okay. Apparently Biddy B is in the spectator spot. He typed out that message, but he must have just been watching on Discord or something. Either way, though, I'm expecting some interesting things out of this set. There's only 2 games, so I'm sure there's more to come from looking at this map and between these players. I actually have another set of games. I think it might be 3 games. Oh, no, it's just a single game, so I guess 3 games total. Another attempt at playing one of Biddy B's other maps, Dyadic Shore, which was recently updated. So it'll be interesting to see where things go. We can talk a little bit about the map, actually. Obviously, you have this double wide ramp over here into the expansion, the natural expansion. And then if you come over here, there's actually some neutral biotic bastions, I believe, which is an endgame Terran add-on. And those allow you to actually easily wall here. The only thing I would be concerned about is that obviously you can just put down an iron foundry in the late game, but it's probably not going to be that consequential. And if they're not aligned to the build grid anyway, which would be the easy way to get around that, then you actually don't have any worries about that. So that's kind of interesting. It looks like jakulangski is angling for a Larvosk into pool, although he might be a little bit on the, I don't know, this looks a little bit stagnated to me, but we'll see what his actual antics are going to be about. We have a gateway coming out for Neblime. Workers have passed each other. This is fashioned out of Blitz Y, a similar idea to Blitz Y, and there's the pool before the Larvosk morph, so that's what I was looking for there. And yeah, I think you can kind of see some similarities, but the middle of the map is very different, very different. So you'll notice that you can sort of go in the interior, and then there's a path into the middle, which otherwise is kind of difficult to access because you have to go through these very wide spokes, or you have to go through the low ground, right? So we'll look at that. Maybe we'll actually get some of a look-see at what the rest of the games are going to look like. A little bit of a preview about this map in particular. Always down to look at new maps. We'll actually have, I think, mostly new-ish maps to be cast in the next couple of days, because after this, my plan was to do a game on Scoria Apotamos, I believe is how you pronounce that. Or it could be Apotomos, I don't know. That's one by Jujic, so it could be interesting to take a look at a game on that map. And I've seen a little bit of Thalassa's Claim, which is another map they made. I feel like I've also seen a little bit of Old Scar, although I don't know. It's not been that much, but anyway, there's a lot of new maps that have been coming out lately, so I feel like it's worthwhile to take a look at that. Jack could have dropped his natural a little bit sooner than that, but it looks like he will be in the clear for now. Neblime, thinking about his own natural at the same time, is going to allow him to kind of keep pace with the Zerg for now. Although I would love to see another Larvosk or another Hatch or something at some point soon for Jack so that he can keep production going. He does have to be mindful of a potential gateway flood for Neblime should either one of our players scout that. It's actually a Warden defensively, so maybe anticipating some aggression from jakulangski. We can see that that's not exactly what Jack is planning, but Neblime always a keen eye looking out for what might come about. If you are somebody who plays Cosmonarchy, you can access this thing inside your config that lets you pick preferred colors. I would be very interested to know what people have selected as their color preferences, and maybe it would be of interest to other people as well. Because I know that I think Krankendow and Hamster both have Magma in their list, I'm pretty sure. And I think Krankendow recently added Blood, and maybe a couple others. So always interested in what people have been gunning for. And if I got anything wrong in that list, feel free to correct in the comments below. Love me some comments. So the Nexus is going to get heckled by these Zeths. Jack will end up losing one of them, and then he'll see if he can get his way out. No, actually, he won't be able to escape with any of them. So a little bit awkward there. More and more Zeths pouring on through. Not really so much a contain right now, and no extra tech coming either. Second lattice for Neblime. He's going to be going gate lattice, it looks like. So there's like kind of a bunch of different follow-ups you can do. There's like openers, right? And then there's follow-ups. And this follow-up here, with it being a bit more lattice focused, with the Warden now revealing itself, that should be a canceled attack immediately. Get as many of those Zeths out as you can. Instead, Jack kind of moving off to the side here. I wonder why he was thinking about that, because he's not really going to be able to do too much damage here. Instead, he'll heckle the Bionic Bastion a little bit. Okay. Yeah, so the follow-up going lattice heavy is definitely going to bode well for Neblime against the Larvosk opener that Jack has done. And the Larvosk into pool means that you have a lot of Vespene early game sort of cordoned off for the production, since this is going to then delay the Hydrith Den. Vassal's over here, but there's already a Spraith for protection. It's kind of interesting that there's a Spraith for protection. I don't think Jack actually saw that there was a Vassal, or that there's a Lattice here, which produces the Vassal. So it's kind of interesting, and fortuitous that the Vassal doesn't get to the natural, because there's no static defense over there. But the worker count is obviously in favor of the Protoss for now. We have additional Kagrins being dropped here. A single Avaleth started to maybe ferry some of them around. And we do have the Vornaths here, so we are going to see sort of doubling down on the small arms sort of attacks. But the Hydrith then also speaks to presumably Hydralisks being added to the list. So we'll find out. We'll keep tabs on the army. A nice little scout over here. Doesn't end up getting a worker kill, but kind of confirms that the army is still at home. It's got some nice coverage in a couple of different spots. This guy just scouting for any drops that might be coming through the fairly short vertical distance at the end of the day. I mean, it's a very straight path, we can say. So definitely makes sense to scout for that. Third base already up for Jack, so he's sort of responding to his opponent being a little bit slow to move out of his base by being a little bit on the greedy side. Although he still doesn't have the worker count that he would love to have, he is going to go ahead and see if he can establish a little bit of a frontal situation here with his Avaleths, moving the Kagrins all around, which is pretty neat, and adding a second Larvosk, third, I guess a fourth hatch at this point. So that's quite interesting. Witness now going to go in and spot the... Of course, I have to say it. Biddy tile. But besides the Biddy tile, he'll spot the general situation here. If that Avaleth was in position, it actually would have detected the Witness, and then it would have been donezo. But instead, it looks like we're actually going to get set up for a Zeth Record drop. Okay, very interesting. If he does it right here, he'll be out of vision of his opponent. And the prostration stage just got started. I don't know if you can conceivably kill that with 12 Zeths. But you can certainly give it your best shot. A lot of golems, a lot of other units, but yeah, kind of just like haphazardly attacking forward instead of going after the workers or anything. So that's a little awkward. We might get a worker kill here, and we might not get anything here. So, I mean, he gets the scout off. He knows it's a prostration stage. He has one Zeth in one of those Avaleths, still this one right over here, and he ends up losing one of those Avaleths. But, you know what, it was good for scouting. It didn't really cost him that much. Losing the Avaleth is a bit painful. Not doing any damage at all, not even like killing pylons or whatever is a bit underwhelming, but it's still going to give Jack a little bit of an tempo advantage. You know, he confirms that his opponent is still in his base, and this is allowing Jack to take a fourth base at this position. And we'll see what more gets done in the meantime. You'll notice now we can take a look at the structure of the map a little bit more easily as the Protoss army starts to move out. This base is very cordoned off everything else. You really need to have some control over on the right section of the map in order to get something done there. The Protoss force is going to be able to punch through these circuits, and we don't have that many defensive units in the right positions here. So Jack is going to have to respond very quickly. The Witness already here, able to do some focus firing for the Golems is going to be the name of the game. Remorphing that circuit is not a bad shout. The Ecclesiast is keeping the Golems very, very healthy. You can see the attempt at sort of powering them down is just not working. Jack, you need to focus fire. Okay, now we've got some focus fire out. The Vorv's out to slow down the attack rate as well, but I think this is still more than the Zerg can take. He does have 5 Hydras coming out. Circuits have started to be atrophied. These Golems are definitely going to go off to their deaths. And I still think this attack force will be cleaned up. I will also note that Jack hasn't really moved the needle on his worker count very much here, so that's a little unfortunate for him. Let's see what more we have out in the store. It looks like maybe this is enough for Neblime to feel happy with his position. His units are kind of like rallying up and body blocking himself a little bit there, so... Now we've got another Another Kagran going down, so this base never got set up either, so that's a little painful. Jack definitely in need of more larva, I think, at this point. He has a decent amount of cash. Maybe he didn't add this Larvos to his control group because he doesn't have any eggs over there, so that's just something I've noticed. Third base now coming up for Neblime. He has no idea that the fourth is starting. Although, again, we saw that earlier being attempted. I feel like it could have happened a little bit sooner. If that Ovolith comes back home to get rid of this Witness, that could be helpful. But looks like instead he's just going to go ahead and set up more defenses as he moves across the map. We've got some Sycophants out. The Sycophant, a very scary unit. You better watch out. It does deal some splash damage. People are saying that maybe right now its passive isn't working properly, which is something I haven't yet cordoned off enough time in my schedule to look at. But definitely something that we ought to take a look at some point. Engram on the way. Its passive is intended to take any unit with less shields than the Sycophant and trade shields to them. So if you have a unit with 20 shields and they are like 20 max, not 20 max shields, but 20 current shields, the Sycophant is supposed to feed them shields over time, basically at the same rate of flash shielding in some ways. And they also deal splash damage, right? So you can kind of see it was definitely speeding up the shield regen there, but I guess that could have been Ecclesiast. It's hard to say. Anyway, the Sycophants are basically like souped up golems when it comes to the splash damage that they deal. It's much more formidable. So they are still pretty good there. It's just if they're not... we'll see if they're on cost efficiency or, you know, how they do. I actually haven't seen people actually try to use them. So it's kind of funny. Gateway Lattice Wall over here to hold the third. And this is a deadly sort of double engram setup, especially with Cliff Advantage factored in. So looking pretty good so far. Worker count surging up for jakulangski. He's able to overtake his opponent. We'll see for how long. The saturation is quite poor still. And do we still not have a tier 2? I've just now noticed that, actually. Yeah, still no tier 2. So the Protoss is at a pretty notable tech advantage. Second prostration stage has been made back at home. The Ovolith will indeed be popped, surely. Surely it's not going to escape with 7 health. Oh my god. Oof, it died. Yeah, Sycophant can't attack air, so no worries there. That's actually the second Ovolith to die, which means that Jack is going to need another one if he wants to hold off this attack and deal with the witnesses and such. Or just generally have a good scouting situation to go for. Now, this spoke is very deadly for this sort of phalanx of Kagra. In fact, looking at the Kagra spread over here, I wonder if Jack is like, wait, dude, is this... Am I playing Starcraft 2? Like, what's going on? How is there Kagra all over here? He will be able to wrap around and attack a weakened flank, and also, you know, pressure top left, which has some gas mining. I still can't believe we still do not have an Iral Iris out. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. Here we go. Attacking the hatch. This is going to spring the trap for Jack, as he's going to go ahead and see what he can do to pick off these Sycophants, pick off the golems. I'm not so sure. I mean, again, you really want to watch out for the focus fire here. Hatch is going to get descended upon again, but if he can pick off these stragglers, that can equip him with something. Yeah, honestly, it kind of does look like the Sycophant stuff is working a little bit, but, like, I don't know for sure. It's hard to tell. Lakizilisks are going to be a great help here. Dealing with the mass ground and in general is always going to be a good move. And I love jakulangski moving to the side to try to cut off the army. This is a non-trivial, significant chunk of Neblime's forces. He doesn't really have that much else on the map. He's making a lot of Ecclesiasts. He's made a Potentate, which is always cool to see. And now, look at these. These golems are going to start to get overwhelmed a little bit. Instead, they're not being focused down. We've got the big fight over here, backed into a corner. What more can Neblime do with this position? The Lakizilisk Spines doing a great amount of damage over here, trying to puncture the Ecclesiast back catalog for Neblime, so he can't really get anything better dealt. But here comes the Potentate, dealing a lot of damage with its melee attack, and its melee attack also ascends. That means that everything else is going to have an increased attack rate. And I feel like since Jack is still on tier 1 versus tier 2, tier 3 armies, this is definitely not looking like his kind of game. He wasn't able to breach the golem stack. I think the Sycophants were doing something. The Ecclesiasts were definitely doing something. And, you know, the Potentate is just there for flair at the end, but it didn't end up being necessary. It's a pretty good, you know, single target with its 30 damage, right? So there is that. The Hydra firing line doing its best over here to try to deal with these golems. Once the front line is dealt with, maybe you can do something here with reinforcements, but he's just making a lot of Zethra-cores. I don't know that that's going to be enough. Let's see. Neblime's pulled the trigger on retreating. He's taking the bottom left base. He's starting to set up some static defense over there as well. And yeah, it does look like this is going to be his opportunity to take a stand. Although jakulangski flooding through with a lot of units. He's got a lot of minerals in the bank as well. Definitely, we're finding it a little bit difficult here for Jack because he's just spent all of his minerals on Zoryus. And remember, he's only now getting access to the amount of Vespene that he needs for Tier 2. And we're 15 minutes into the game nearly. So that might be one of the later Tier 2s timings that I've seen. Jack will survive for now. I thought for sure he would end up being... defeated from that position, but still not having any Tier 2, having to reestablish, reset his 4th base, now behind economically in terms of the tempo. Also in terms of worker count, we've got more units coming on through. The Ecclesiasts, the Potentates, standing together, doing what they do best, blasting from the back line as the Golems tank forever and ever and ever. Yeah, these are some interesting synergies. The Iral Iris has started, but I'm not sure that Jack is going to have a chance to make anything with it at this rate. I did see a third prostration stage get started, and you can kind of see it on the minimap extending out from the Nexus. This is a very thematically consistent, well-organized Protoss base. The SimCity is pleasing to the eye. This base was about to be taken at some point, but that Droleth will be swatted down by the Golem Drakadon combo. Now this base is going to get taken, but the Witness is there to spy on it. So Neblime knows he's he's up a base for sure. He's actually taking a 5th right now, north of his Nexus in the main. And here we go. The Zoryus doing what it does, doing what it's attempting to do, trying to charge forward so that it can help out the rest of the forces, get them connections onto the fight. I don't know. I don't know how... Okay, listen, Tier 2 is done. The Matraval Nest is coming up. Jack has got an idea. Al-Kagiteth on the way as well. All right. Let's see what more he can do. That's my question about Jack is always like, how does he survive into the mid game? And especially the late game. His late game is very, very good. So if he can survive long enough there, then maybe he can do that. But he's taking a lot of losses right now. Neblime with an interesting novel composition, something we haven't seen too much. And definitely making me realize that the Potentates need like a different color or something. Or just, they need a whole sort of different experience, which is fine. It's definitely something that needs to be done at some point. Make them feel a little bit better, right? A little bit more different than the Ecclesiast. Dude, this Ecclesiast has dealt 1,000 damage almost. That's a trooper, man. That guy's been around for a long time. A couple of units going to clear out this position here, or try their hardest anyway. And empowered defenses protecting the 3rd base. Worker count rising very nicely for Neblime as he starts to saturate his 5th, though. And the 4th only now comes up for Jack, so Zerg definitely are not feeling very good from this position. We've got a Crucible to enchant and empower all of the production, increasing the training rate of all of those structures. And just, taking pot shots from the top rope. Jack is trying to enforce and keep alive his spoke here, close to his base. He's got a lot of minerals yet again, but now this paltry force is going to get crushed. I see a dead worker there as well, so there was going to be an attempt at taking another base. We have a Nidus being set up here, and that's not a bad idea to bridge the gap to the top left. In fact, something that we don't see being used very often. But Jack is staring down the barrel of potentially being contained in his own base. We'll take a look at these golems, because as they start to fall, Neblime is going to have to think about falling back. And let's see, I mean, the golems are standing tall for now. The Ecclesiasts doing their best. If you could just get a couple of these Potentates forward to attack in melee to enchant the attack speed of everything else, it looks like maybe it's not going to matter. The Kagralisk's coming out over here, but there's plenty over here to deal with all of this. Look at the Sycophants slashing away, slicing and dicing. The Zephricors fall, and there's really not much more frontline coming in. We do have some more Zeths coming, but no Vorvs, no more Zoryus. The onslaught of Protoss forces that rallied around, instead of getting lost in those defenses by the 3rd, are going to work wonders for Neblime, and he's still standing tall. He doesn't have as many golems as he once had, right? Looks like I'm trying to control click on the guy, but he keeps wiggling around in silly ways. There you go. He's 1 golem. That's it. Here's the Nidus. It's not been focused down just yet. There goes the couple of the frontline units that were there. And yeah, that Nidus does need to be focused down, I think, but it's going to stay alive for now. Kagralisk staying up. We are seeing an attempted wraparound, but there's way more reinforcements where that came from. I think Neblime's got this one in the bag. Jack has too much money in the bank and not enough larvae on the field to turn them into battle-ready units. He's going to lose his 4th the 2nd time. And his natural might be next, actually. Just walking on through, ignoring the rest. holding the rest of the attack forces at bay while he finishes mopping up things at that top left location. And there goes this hatch. We got another Nidus being trying to be assembled here. We see an Ancestral Archives in the production queue, and GG has to be called before it can even finish materializing. Neblime has taken game 1. And you know what? That was an interesting game. I mean, I always like to see new units, and I tell you guys, Neblime plays Protoss the way that, like, the author of any... He plays your game the way that you would hope that as a designer. Because he's going to try to use all these different units and try all these wacky compositions. And if your game is, you know, well designed, well put together, and has some cool ideas, even if it might not be what everybody else thinks is like the most optimal, like he'll try that on like a set of clothes sometimes. But he also spends a good amount of time in theory just thinking about the different things that he can combine. And that's why he decides to bring forth the Sycophant. And you know what? It might not have won him the game as dominantly as he wanted to or whatever, but it was looking pretty neat. So that's what we'll say for there. Let's move on to game number 2. Well, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, the second game is a bit of a dud on the replay. There was some pretty exciting action where an engram got infested, and then after that, everything went for the worst. The replay stopped serializing properly, it looks like. So we're going to leave it there for this episode of the Cast Over series, where I just keep making this unbroken streak of a ridiculous number of videos every single day. I hope you guys enjoyed that match. Some very interesting compositions out of Neblime, like I mentioned. And yeah, I'm just excited to see where he takes the race. I'm excited to bring you guys some PVZ between Krankendau and Aoud later on this week, because that's going to be exciting. The fact that Aoud is trying Protoss, and Krankendau thinks that he's really good at it. So that's already something that's on my radar. Join us tomorrow, though. We'll be most likely be looking at Hit 'em Up versus Arbuz Budash. I'll see you guys then. GG.